can't find my wallet. Gotta go to lunch, but I don't know where to put it. It was in a very strange place, underneath some clothes, right there. You know what the worst thing in the world is? It's being on call. It's waiting for something to happen, but not knowing exactly what will happen. It drives me bad. Today, I'm gonna talk about this vlog. Now, the thing is, I wanna be able to like get a shot where I'm looking up at the camera and then be able to include my gestures. And there's nowhere in my house that I can do that. So the only place I could find is my fridge. So it's on top of that. You get this beautiful, not entirely clean pan in the background. Anyway, today me, Travis, and Gabby and I met and had a vlogging retrospective. So we finally started talking about what's working, what's not, what are we gonna change, all that kind of stuff. And having done this for as long as I've done it, so 23, this will be 24, something like that, I've come to the realization that I cannot make good vlogs about my life, simply because, one, I need good content to do it. The most interesting things in my life, I've got three big areas, are things I do with Maddie, things I do with my family, and things I do for my job. So I can't, my family doesn't want to be on YouTube, Maddie doesn't want to be, and if I went and talked about the internals of my job to the world at large, all my clients would freak out. So all three of those things I can't do. That cuts out most major swaths, most major interesting areas of my life. So what that leaves is, what can I talk about? Of the videos that I've done, what has worked really well? One of the things Travis said was that he really liked when I talk about how I can become a more effective person, how I can become a better person, how I choose to view my time and make decisions. So all of that kind of stems from one bigger core question, and that question is a really simple one. It's just what does being a good person mean? How can I become a better one? And then how is that applied? One of the ideas that Gabby had for me, because I'm always like staring at this camera, is new and interesting backgrounds. So back here you can see this lovely view. There's been this giant pile of mud, and basically there's just construction, mud tracks all over the parking lot into people's houses. It's pretty terrible. I'm sitting here in the little digger thing, I think it's called a backhoe, and this might be a good angle. I just discovered I've got back here in the blind spot of my head, I can't really see it, I have an alfalfa. I've got like this little thing, and so I asked Maddie about it. I'm like, yo, I've had this alfalfa. She's like, yeah, you've had that all week. Thanks. Anyway, one of the reasons I can't really do that many outside shots is because I don't have one of those big fuzzy mics that mutes the wind. So what sounds completely nice to me while I'm talking could actually be unintelligible. I've had to cut footage as a result of the wind. So hopefully this segment's okay. Anyway, rather than sit here and wish that I could record and talk about and do stuff about parts of my life that I can't, instead I'm going to talk about stuff that I nerd out on, like the parts of my life that I can. So that actually consists of things that I do quite often every day, I think about all the time. I'm going to restrict the focus down to a single topic and kind of delve into it every day, maybe with some other stuff happening on the side. Anyway, rather than sit here and wish that I could record and talk about and do stuff about parts of my life that I can't, instead I'm going to talk about stuff that I nerd out on, like the parts of my life that I can. So that actually consists of things that I do quite often every day, I think about all the time. I'm going to restrict the focus down to a single topic and kind of delve into it every day, maybe with some other stuff happening on the side. But what that thing is, I guess I should give an example. One of my favorite books, my favorite book is Dune, but one of my other favorite books, and I haven't even finished it, I haven't even finished this book, it's Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And so, little history lesson. Marcus Aurelius was, I don't remember, the last of the 5 good emperors of Rome. So like if you're alive in Rome during these guys' reigns, you had a good life. It was a good life. And the reason the book is so interesting is because Marcus Aurelius was, during the time that he was alive, probably the most powerful man on earth. And what Meditations is just things that he wrote to himself, thinkings that he wrote on his own that he never intended to share. So it was his completely unfiltered view on the world. People really haven't changed that much between then and now. Technology is a big difference. And so that's really, really, really fascinating to go and see, to go and like confront, to be with and to know, like, the most powerful man on earth. How did he think? What questions did he ask himself? What answers did he come up with? And so the book Meditations is a variety of chapters. They're mostly little quotes, little sayings, little whatever. And basically, the reason I haven't gone through it is because I get stuck. I find one I really, really like, and then I have to memorize it. One of the things that I wish school had made me do a whole lot more is sit down and memorize poetry. I actually think that poetry are very carefully crafted words, and once you know them, once you have that phrasing in your brain, such to the point that you can just in there, you memorize it, you can say it, that's when you can act upon it. So I feel the exact same way about the stuff that Marcus Aurelius says, that it needs to be memorized. It needs to be internalized, applied, and understood. So the quote that I'm working on right now is a really, really long one. And so I actually started trying to do this a year ago, and I abandoned it because it was really long, but I'm back at it again. Anyway, here's the quote. I'm going to read it in chunks and then talk about why what has been said is actually profound. Begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil. Stated colloquially, other people will not be nice. This is outside of my control, and just because they are not nice does not change the fact that I can act rightly or wrongly. Now we're here. But for my part, I have long perceived the nature of good and its nobility, the nature of evil and its meanness, and also the nature of the culprit himself, who is my brother, and then in parentheses, not in the physical sense, but as a fellow creature similarly endowed with reason and a share of the divine. Therefore, none of these things can injure me, for nobody can implicate me in what is degrading. So the next part needs, the next. Neither can I be angry with my brother or fall foul of him, for he and I were born to work together like a man's two hands, feet, or eyelids, or the upper and lower rows of his teeth. To obstruct each other is against nature's law, and what is irritation or aversion but a form of obstruction? This has a whole bunch of extremely healthy assumptions built into it. First of which being that people aren't mean, they aren't bad to you out of actual malice. It's just ignorance of what is right or wrong. So after that, probably my favorite line in the whole thing. Therefore, none of those things can injure me, for nobody can implicate me in what is degrading. If somebody says something mean, nasty, or brutish, or they just want to dig their claws into you, it's very easy to react. It's very easy to let them do that. That, in large part, that's kind of like popular culture is full of people who do this, full of like people who are extremely reactive. And the thing is, for that to be true, there has to be a separation between when somebody sends you a message and you receive it and then you interpret it. So whether or not you are implicated in something degrading, whether or not somebody says something about you and you let it affect you and think it's true, that's up to you. And that's actually really, 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 I love that. And I love that because if you know what is right and what is wrong, and you can choose what you will be implicated in or not, then that means that that's what gives you the capacity to actually be a good person in your own eyes. Finally, he goes on, it's natural for us all to work together. It's natural for us to be two different parts of the same body, or whatever metaphors he uses. This part is important because it kind of, so somebody says something really mean. So what? That's not how it's supposed to be. Here's how it's supposed to be. Here's the actual desirable outcome. That's the kind of world that I would rather live in than any other one described. So almost every day I write that out. The reason I chose that specific one is because I knew that at the time when I chose to start writing it out, that I would need to have empathy for somebody who is trying to be destructive towards me. So that quote helped me do it. It helped me see the situation clearly. It helped me understand a lot of stuff that I didn't before. I can't go more into that, but it's extremely helpful. So the big thing about this book is that these are not, it's not a book that you just read. It's not like a bunch of chapters. It's not a story. Each one of these things is an answer. And you won't really understand what it's an answer to until you encounter the question. So the right way to read that book is simply to go through, understand a synopsis, see if any in particular hit you, then grab onto them, think about them, apply them in a given situation, meditate over them. And so, because you're not going to get all of them at once, they're answers. And the only time that you can really understand an answer is after you already know the question that it's meant for. So that's one of the things that I spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about. I don't know if that one in particular is interesting, but oftentimes business situations will spring up. I wish a lot of these things I could talk about them in detail, but ultimately when an obstacle, an obstruction, or something gets in the way, then so this, and what is irritation or aversion but a form of obstruction? Obstruction to the overall goal of everybody working together, everybody actually being good, just whatever you said. It's natural for us to work together. And so I love that because it's a brilliant reframing of, here's this thing that would otherwise make me really angry, but no, forget about it. That is an irritation. It's a thing that I can just brush off. Here's the other thing that I actually care about over here. So being forced to define those bigger things, being forced to define the outcome that you actually want, and then identifying the things that you need to do to get that is incredibly useful. So that's it. I'm gonna leave today focused around the quote, but I think every day I'm gonna go very deep into one thought that I have that I never tell anybody about, or thing that I do that nobody knows that I do.